Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag there. I could hear it. So I'm going to two clips that I got to react to today. I wanted to try it on the streaming platform. Just because something different, vertical streams do great. So nothing against those. I just wanted to try something different. So I got two clips I want us to react to here. One's of Elon. MSNBC covered it. And it's about him calling the redeployment of 1,000 FBI agents. So some people are pretty upset about this. They're kind of like, what is Elon doing? That's agents that could be helping with ongoing cases. They're basically taking away power from the police. Like, it's a whole bunch of mixed views going on with this. So we're just going to react to it. I'm going to let it play. I'm not really going to interrupt it just for Wi-Fi purposes, you could say. I want to see how it plays through. And then after that, I'll give a little bit of commentary and feedback. And then I have another clip we're going to react to. FDA rescinds firing. So this is about some scientists that they need to return to work, and latest reversal of Doge cuts, which a lot of leftists were going crazy over this. Like, oh, Elon's making mistakes, and then he has to bring people back on. We talked about this. Scott Jennings said on CNN, like, hey, I'm okay with some mistakes being made as long as the job gets done, right? There'll be some mistakes because it's a massive job. So with that being said, those two clips, then I'm going to be going back to look at it and see how it played because I have a meeting after this. So this is going to be a relatively quick live. So with that being said, welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Karen Smith. Call me Q. And we on the corner. First time on a live streaming platform and not a vertical stream. I'm excited. So let's get into the first clip. I'm going to play it. It's about a 5-second lag. So if you hear me or see me wait, you know why I'm doing it. And then we're going to go right into the clip.
We want to turn now to former Assistant Director for Counterterrorism at the FBI and MSNBC Senior National Security Analyst Frank Figliuzzi. Okay, Frank, so what is your reaction? We were talking a little bit before you came on about what we were just talking about, 1,000 people at FBI headquarters being reassigned rather quickly.
Yeah, it's a grand gesture to fulfill what has been a promise of Patel's. I'm going to drastically reduce the headquarters component. The problem is my sources are telling me there's no logic here. In other words, the people don't know where they're going. They're not even sure if it's them that's going to be named in this. There's more details coming.
And there's not like a rhyme or reason to what departments, what roles,
right. There's been apparently no thought about, hey, Cleveland needs more agents. Maybe we'll send 2 there. There's nothing like that going on right now. So premature. With regard to the Huntsville, Alabama location, there's a couple of congressmen who've been banging the desk about getting people to Huntsville and to their territory. That's what that's about.
So you're hearing some of these agents are going to be reassigned from Washington, D.C. to Huntsville, Alabama?
Will mostly be non-agent support, professional support analysts, non-agent functions that really you could do from anywhere. But again, as you mentioned, the disruption to families, big deal.
I also want to ask you about what we were just talking about, this police database, this DOJ database. You know, it came from law enforcement who said there was criticism from law enforcement that said they didn't like it because they weren't given a chance to defend themselves. What's your take on that? Were there problems with this database, and should it still exist?
So what the claims have been is, look, our name got in this database because, but there's been no due process. I was fired wrongly. No one's looked into this. There's minor offenses that are in the database, and there's serious misuse of force cases. The problem is it's all gone now. And so if a federal officer who's been disciplined wants to kind of go around and find a way to get employed somewhere, no one has a real way to find out what that officer's background was.
But this database has only existed for a few years. How were they tracking this before, or were they just not tracking it?
Good question. They were not tracking this before. And in fact,
at all?
No. And so officers, bad officers could move around the country, even within their own state, and not necessarily have anyone know what their history was. What I'm concerned about is, what does this mean from a larger sense? Does it mean the Trump administration won't be opening cases against bad cops, won't be working civil rights and excessive use of force cases? Do they care anymore? That remains to be seen.
So what accountability backstops are there at state or local jurisdictions to prevent some of the things we've just been talking about, to track bad cops and make sure they're not getting rehired?
It is continually shocking to me that there's not enough tracking taking place, even within the same state. So there's got to be more money spent on vetting an officer candidate, particularly coming from some other department.
Yeah.
Why did you leave? Let's pull the file. Let's go over that. There was talk of a national police database, just like this federal one that's been eliminated. And that now seems to be falling by the wayside.
Well, that's my next question is, do you see or foresee a ripple effect going through DOJ with this decision about other police reforms, about other law enforcement reforms?
Yeah, I think this is a signal. This is how I see it. If you've deliberately got the president saying, I want that database to go away, and it was his idea in the first place during his last term, then that's not a mistake Doge is making. That's a decision that Donald Trump is making.
Any other things stand out to you about this database or about what you've been seeing at the FBI, at the DOJ that really concern you?
Yeah, look, generally with Kash Patel in power now, he's arrived. He's on the 7th floor. He's clearing the place out. And the big concern is, what will the FBI not be working? Right? He said they're cops. They should be working murder and rape. Someone needs to tell him murder and rape in and of themselves are not federal crimes. Agents are not really cops in the sense of that. We don't have a national police force. My question, is he going to try and turn the FBI into a national police force, a secret police force for Donald Trump?
All right. And on that cheerful note, Frank Figliuzzi, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, so you guys probably couldn't hear me. So I muted it. Good thing I didn't start talking very long because I'm aware of the delay. So work with me here, guys. Sorry about that. But what I was saying is one of the most troubling things I found about this story that I saw most people worried about was not only are their agents basically being taken away, so it almost seems like to some people that there's power being taken away from the police force by this happening. I guess I can semi-understand what they mean by that. But I think one of the most troubling things I also saw in the comments were just the fact of like, wow, so now President Trump is making it, he's basically making it a point to track bad cops, right? And before that wasn't in place. And I think that's a big deal if that's actually what's happening, because that's something that a lot of people say, you know, they couldn't even see Donald Trump doing something like that, or he cares so much about the police. Like, it's the end of all minorities because of all this police power Donald Trump is going to give the police. When really what he wants to do is empower the police. The Biden-Harris administration really took a lot of power away. We saw an influx in crime, and no one can deny that. And we saw a lot of police officers saying things like, hey, we're not allowed to do anything here. Like, our hands are tied behind our backs. So I thought that was interesting that there is support there, but Donald Trump still wants it to be a good police force. Essentially, like the gentleman said, this is not something that Doge is doing. This would be a call that Donald Trump himself is making. So I thought that was super interesting. So we're going to jump over to MSNBC. I don't know if you guys got a chance to catch my last live, but I actually covered MSNBC's Joy Reid being fired. Huge leftist meltdown a little bit over that. She had a lot of support. Don Lemon said some great things about her. I wanted to cover that. I might get into some of that tomorrow. But nonetheless, I covered it on my last live. And when it comes to this live, I just wanted to go over two really short stories that I found interesting, plus testing out the software. So I just wanted to see what, let's call it a crash run, what it would look like. So we're going to jump down to MSNBC. They're talking about some FDA rescinds, making a big deal out of Elon letting some people go and then having to bring them back. And then also talking about the fact that the GOP will collapse in 30 days. So I'm thinking this is a extreme leftist position. It has to crash, right? Like, it can't be this much synergy. It can't be this much harmony. They have to be fighting behind the scenes, and we're just not being exposed to it yet. So I'm interested to see on how this is going to work out, you know, with the Democrats, especially the hard left Democrats, the leftists thinking like this. But we're going to nonetheless jump into the story and see what we have to say about the unity with the Republican Party, which should be a rejoicing matter, right? And also some of these FDA rescinds and firings.
Democratic strategist James Carville, he's out with a bold prediction, saying that the Trump administration and Republican lawmakers will suffer a massive collapse in 30 days. Let's take a look.
What I've said very publicly, the Democrats need to play possum. This whole thing is collapsing. It doesn't need Elizabeth Warren and somebody screaming to pacify some progressive advocacy groups in Washington, which, by the way, I wish these people were just useless. They're actually worse than useless, that they're detrimental. And they never, ever learn to shut up. And so, Dan, this is what I believe. I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse, and particularly a collapse in public opinion. It's going to be easy pickings here in 6 weeks. Just lay back.
So you literally think 30 days to 6 weeks, the Trump administration is effectively going to collapse in terms of public support?
Well, it's collapsing right now. We're in the midst of a collapse. This is the lowest approval, not even close, that any president has ever had at a comparable time. Again, that's a provable fact. So they're not going to be able to get a debt extension. That's pretty clear.
Now, I'm not sure where our friend is getting his information from when he's saying things like this is the lowest approval rating that we've seen. That's actually not true. That's actually not a fact. President Trump is actually doing extremely well, and he's actually probably doubling the numbers that he did in his first term. His approval rating across the board is actually about 60%. The lowest I saw was 48, and then there was somewhere else that called a 45 or a 48, but I didn't see that with my own eyes. What I have seen with my own eyes across the board is 60%, and then his lowest being 58. So I'm not really sure where our friend's getting his information from, but that's actually not a fact when it comes to President Trump approval rating.
They're going to have to go to Hakeem, and that is going to be the equivalent of stacking arms. It's over.
Well, that is certainly
pronouncement.
That's certainly one view of it. Again, going back to Wide World of News, Halpern also quotes from Heather Cox Richardson's newsletter, her quote of Timothy Snyder, who is a scholar on authoritarianism, who said, "Something is shifting. They are still breaking things and stealing things, and they will keep trying to break and steal. But the propaganda magic around the oligarchical coup is fading. Nervous Musk, nervous Trump." And the point is, not that necessarily everything's going to be over in 30 days or that things are going to collapse in 30 days. But Democrats, for the first time since Election Day, and this is what Halpern's Wide World of News is saying, for the first time since Election Day, Democrats are starting to see an opening. And with that opening, a lot of questions, Mika, about who will lead this party.
Right. Joining us now, co-founder, CEO of Axios, Jim Vandehei, and journalist, editor, and author of the newsletter Fresh Hell, available on
Okay, so that's Jim Vandehei that's about to speak, and I love his take on some things because he does spit some hard facts that I don't think that some of them are Party to hear, but it's actually the truth. Because what is true is that there really is no sign that the Republican Party is going to fall apart. There is, I'm not sure where these Democrats actually see some end. They're saying this is the first time since the Republican Party the Democrats figure out. Mind you, I've said this over and over again on live, and I will continue to say it until we're doing coverage in 2028 on the election. But I do not know who the Democrats are going to put up. I do not think that there's someone that they can put up that will actually take the election. I actually think when it comes to that, the Democrats are in trouble. Now, unless we see a drastic turn in maybe the last 2 years, which is halfway through Trump's administration, I would say possibly. But if not, I'm a little bit worried.
As well. She's the host of the Rest is Politics podcast, which is amazing as well.
Yeah. So, Jim Vandehei, you've actually written about, Axios has actually written about this, which is the sort of different camps that we have right now for leaders who want to take charge of the Democratic Party and lead the fight against Republicans and Donald Trump. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Carville's spot on in his analysis. Like, he's got to look at where the Democratic Party is right now, right? We also have polls showing Democrats have never been, as a party, more unpopular than they are at this moment. On top of that, they don't have much power, right? If you don't control the Senate, you don't control the House, you don't control the White House, you don't control the courts. There's only so many levers that you can actually pull. So the debate inside the party is, do you accept that some of the things that Donald Trump wants to do directionally might be correct, and that put sort of Governor Whitmer or Governor Paulus in Colorado in that camp, saying, listen, maybe they're with them on tariffs or part of tariffs, maybe they're with them on the border and conceding that things need to be done and not that every day doesn't need to be a fight. That's one camp. I think the others here, Chris Murphy's a senator from Connecticut, or J.D. Pritzker in Illinois, people who are from very liberal states where they have the freedom to be in sort of the warfare mindset, day in, day out, hour in, hour out. And I think that is the big fight. I think we know the way politics works is Trump's going to live or die based on his performance. Like, tell me what inflation looks like in a month. Tell me what the jobless rate looks like. Tell me where wages are.
Bring that back a little bit because I want to hear him talk a little bit more. But what I said a little bit there is he's speaking facts. No talking about the fact that the Democratic Party has been this unpopular. I actually love this guy's transparency because he came on and we can obviously tell what he cares about, a little bit about what he doesn't. But what I like is that he comes to the table with the hardcore facts. There's never been a point in time in history where the Democrats have been so unpopular. Well, now is that time. So when they're saying that, this is ever since President Trump and his cabinet have been together, the Democrats see it in where they can actually infiltrate and try to figure out how they're going to come against Trump, split everything, and win the election. This is the stuff that I'm talking about, so divisive. And we're in the same country plotting against their own president. You know, they spoke so much about Donald Trump weaponizing the government, but the Democrats don't realize that they're making themselves look like they're trying to weaponize the government against the now sitting president. So I thought that this was really interesting. There really is nothing in sight to show that the Republican Party is falling apart or that it's going to. And I wouldn't be wishing that on either party, but the fact that this guy is just bringing the facts to them and saying, hey, there's literally nothing like that in sight, I think it's a breath of fresh air.
fight. That's one camp. I think the others here, Chris Murphy's a senator from Connecticut, or J.D. Pritzker in Illinois, people who are from very liberal states where they have the freedom to be in sort of the warfare mindset, day in, day out, hour in, hour out. And I think that is the big fight. I think we know the way politics works is Trump's going to live or die based on his performance. Like, tell me what inflation looks like in a month, tell me what the jobless rate looks like, tell me where wages are, and tell me how much chaos flows from some of the decisions of the first 30 days, and I'll tell you kind of where his public standing is and whether or not Republicans will break. But so far, there's zero sign. You saw it. You had it this morning. The idea that no Republican will speak up and say, hey, maybe Vladimir Putin's a thug. Maybe he's a dictator. Yeah. Maybe he's been hell-bent for his entire life, starting at the KGB to destroy your nation. Maybe Zelensky, you could argue whether or not we should be there or not there. You can't argue like, oh, he started the war when someone invaded me. And yet you don't have a single Republican who says, hey, that's crazy. That's counter everything we've ever believed in our careers. And I think that speaks to the power Trump will have until those poll numbers go way the hell down.
Well, yeah, until if inflation goes up or those poll numbers go down, the economy goes down. Exactly. I think you're right. I don't see that happening within 30 days.
And that's not something I see happening in 30 days either, you know. But nonetheless, like I said, the guy came straight with facts. You know, he was honest, whether we wanted to hear it or not. But I do think that he's speaking truth to when he says, like, the Democrats are a little bit delusional. There is no sign that the Republican Party is falling apart. As a matter of fact, I think what's most bothersome is the amount of synergy and unity that they are seeing amongst this party right now, especially with all the executive orders that Trump has been passing. I'm thinking that they are hoping that somehow someone within the cabinet gets caught in the crosshairs, which I thought was hilarious, because that is why they are saying that Vice President J.D. Vance is now a victim of MAGA's anti-DEI crusade, which I literally thought was a hilarious headline, right? The Vice President is a victim. No, it's just that DEI policies are getting kicked, and there's certain things that are coming through. They're coming through the funnel, right? Here's what I thought was funny, but no one is talking about the fact that at the White House, President Trump had a celebration for Black History Month. He had a gala, and he had some people speak there and talk about Black History Month and honor some people. He talked about, I think it's like a historical garden / park where they're going to be putting Black historic figures in there, just American heroes in general, but he named some of the Black people that actually will go into there. One of the first Black men who fought in the Revolutionary War and shed blood. But this was not something that was really covered by mainstream media. And this is my problem with mainstream media. This is why I decided to exist. This is the reason why I think the Lord walked me into this space, is because nobody's really being transparent. Whether you like it or not, a story is what the story is, right? With that being said, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is not always the most popular amongst the Republican and or conservative party, but the Democrats do love her. I have a lot of family members that do love and adore Jasmine Crockett. I will say this, she does stand up for herself. She does speak her truth, very much like AOC, right? So you have to just respect the woman that will come on the scene and be like, hey, I'm here and I'm not afraid, right? So I get that. But sometimes I don't always agree with some of Miss Crockett's takes, if I'm honest with you. And that's fine. You don't always have to agree with everyone, right? I want to take a look at something that she talked about on The View. She asked a couple of questions about what she thought about, you know, Doge was doing and what they were up to. And, you know, a little bit about how she felt about it. You know, she's chimed in and talked about steamrolling and things to that effect. I wasn't a huge fan of the whole steamrolling part, but I am familiar with Miss Crockett's take on certain things, so it wasn't that shocking. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to watch this. And then after that, we're pretty much going to go ahead and, you know, shut the live down so I can go back and I can take a look at it. So let's move this over and let's take a look at The View and what Miss Crockett had to say on The View.
Republicans currently rule the House, the Senate, and the White House, but our next guest has been working hard to tip the scales for Democrats. Please welcome back Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Giving them hell. I don't know about that. They giving me hell, honey.
Yeah, but you give it right back to them. A lot of them don't do that.
Absolutely. It's a must in this environment,
That's
though,
right.
Because they will steamroll right over you. And unfortunately, we see that ever since day one, baby, that pen been going and it ain't stopped. And it's steamrolling over all of our rights and our liberties and our freedoms and everything that we thought was the foundation of this country, our Constitution.
Yes.
Seems like we're saying, well, nope, with a pen, get rid of the Constitution. With a pen, get rid of impoundment and other laws that exist.
Do you think that Americans just didn't believe that he would go with that Project 2025?
And I don't agree with that, with what Ms. Crockett is saying. I understand where she's coming from because it can feel like that for some people. Some people do feel like with the stroke of a pen, Donald Trump is kind of just getting rid of everything. He's attacking the Constitution, our rights, and things of that. So I feel like the Democrats are a little bit tone deaf when it comes to things like this. I'm not saying that that's what he's doing, but I think that they forget that, you know, she mentions that we elected a convicted felon, but we also elected a businessman, right? And people who are actually real good with their money and they actually have some financial literacy, they actually don't like debt. Like, they actually can't stand it. They'll do anything to get away from it. They'll sell anything, right? They'll get rid of stuff, right? So it makes sense when I see Donald Trump doing all of these cuts and layoffs, and Elon Musk is side by side with him, and this is the person, the richest man in the world, helping him out do this. This is where I feel like that the Democrats, the lefties, are a little bit tone deaf, because it's like, listen, the biggest problem here is debt. Like, we know that groceries are high and everything's kind of chaotic, but a lot of that is linked to this. And I think that missing as the American people Trump in office to fix some of this. Like, they know that they could have hired someone that had no business savvy at all and could have possibly just sat on the debt. We've done it for years and generations, and you know, maybe something will change and it'll go away. But the American people have spoken. So I don't really agree with Ms. Crockett when she talks about the whole, you know, Donald Trump kind of like stroking his pen and attacking, steamrolling, you know, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. I don't wholeheartedly agree with that at all.
Oh, what? What was that? I mean, he said, I don't even know what it is. Remember?
Oh, I remember, honey.
Yeah.
You know, I remember there was actually a hearing that we had in oversight, and it was right after he said, oh, I know nothing about that Project 2025. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we had a witness, and I mentioned that his name was mentioned 312 times.
Yes.
In Project 2025.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is interesting that he don't know nothing about it, but he's all through it.
And you know, if it's his name, he's riveted to it.
No. And he's relying on the people that absolutely pulled it together.
Like J.D. Vance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I mean, I think that there are those that just said, I want to do something different. Yeah. And so we know that typically when people are feeling it, especially in the economy, they tend to just go the other way. Why? The problem is that this wasn't the guy to fix anything. This is the guy that is the king of breaking things, as we can see.
Yeah. Well, Congresswoman, Elon Musk and Doge, the team, have been infiltrating and dismantling federal agencies. He says he's rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, all while gaining access to some of our most sensitive data. So you sit on the Doge subcommittee run by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Are you getting any more clarity on what exactly Elon and Doge are doing?
She can't even get the question out. Listen, interestingly enough, you know, there was the court filing that came out, or there was the order that came out from Judge Chutkan yesterday, right? And one of the things that the White House and the DOJ is currently saying is that, oh, Elon has no power. Yeah. Elon isn't doing that.
He's not an employee, and he doesn't head the agency. They
Right.
say.
He's tech support, I think, is what they say.
So who's lying is my question. But somebody lying, right? Because they've been like, oh, Elon is cleaning it up, right? So someone's not telling the truth. And I hope that the lawyers are the ones that are telling the truth, because there is a higher standard when it comes to practicing law. This is why Donald Trump's
I'm not gonna lie, Jasmine Crockett is making a good point here, and the reason why she's making a great point here is because she's kind of playing on the notes that people have been talking about the last couple of days, right? They've been saying things like, "Oh, Elon Musk is making all of these changes, and he's doing this, and he's running." She's saying, "Well, who's lying? Someone's lying." Everyone's saying Elon's cleaning up, but then I don't think Elon Musk has the power to just tell people to go home. I don't think Elon Musk has the power to just say, hey, you're right. By executive order, the president has given authority, right? And we watched this when I covered it, when Victor Hagan spoke about gentlemen on the daily job covering mostly conservative topics. So we know that Elon Musk has some power, but not the kind of power that they're talking about. I do believe that his decisions still go through the president. I do believe that he has to in some way report to the president. Now, I could be talking just from my military experience, and I'm thinking about a chain of command, but I have a hard time believing that in the White House there isn't some chain of command or some hierarchy, right? So I don't think that Elon Musk, even just by executive order, can just like with the stroke of a pen or just kind of say like, hey, you need to go home. No, I think that it actually is a decision that's made based on maybe some recommendations that Elon puts through. So with that being said, guys, we are at the end of the live. I do want to leave you guys with a clip from Cliff, but I have a meeting that I have to get to. So I'm actually going to cut this live short. I did leave you guys with a clip from Cliff on my last live. I said that that's how we would end every single live. We're going to end it with a clip from Cliff. So that's going to be the cliffhanger, pun intended, right? But it's great Christian commentary. You guys go back and watch the last live. I ended it, and we were talking about Pastor Anthony Phillips today. He's the lead pastor of 2819 Church, based on Matthew 28:19, calling for us to go out and make disciples. He's a great pastor. I love his heart for holiness. I love the burden that he has on his heart for the church and holiness. So I think that you guys will learn a lot just from that small clip. Small clips help, right? Go share them with somebody. Tell somebody, hey, watch this. I think it'll help you. So, guys, as always, it's great hanging out with you guys. I love chilling on the corner with you guys. Thanks for coming through. And until next time, which is tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow. Same time. I believe I'm probably going to be on tomorrow between 2:45 and 3:30. So, until then, I will see you guys tomorrow. What do I always say? Be peaceful, love yourselves, love one another, and take care of each other. Peace.